Hey guys, tonight we're traveling way back, like toga and sandals back, to witness the very moment when the Greek god of wine and drama, Dionysus, accidentally invented something that would change the world forever: theater snacks. Yeah, I know your mind is probably picturing gold-plated grapes or a goat-shaped popcorn bucket, but trust me, the actual story is much messier and significantly more delicious. You're about to walk through the dusty stone streets of ancient Athens during one of their most chaotic festivals, where tragedies are shouted, olives are thrown, and someone is always dramatically fainting. For no reason. You, my friend, are about to live through the longest play of your life with absolutely nothing to eat. You'll probably wish you had brought a granola bar. Too bad granola hasn't been invented yet. Honestly, good luck. You're gonna need it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, comment where and when you're listening to this. I want to know if you're in a cozy bed in Kentucky or falling asleep in a hammock in Hanoi. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle forward, your sandals clapping lazily against warm stone. The sun is already starting to dip, and a slight golden haze blurs the outlines of marble columns and hanging fig branches. A trumpet squeals in the distance, not triumphantly, but like someone accidentally sat on it. The city Dionysia festival is beginning, and everyone is very excited. Except you. Mostly because you skipped lunch. You pass beneath garlands of ivy and painted pottery shards strung like bunting. The streets are packed with Athenians in various states of revelry, some singing, others quoting lines from last year's most tragic tragedy, and at least one man trying to wrestle a donkey up a flight of stairs because he insists it's part of the performance. Dionysus, of course, is the guest of honor, or rather, the host, or the inspiration. It's unclear, and no one's brave enough to define it precisely, lest the god take offense and curse them with permanent hiccups, or worse, bad poetic rhythm. Anyway, you and a few other hapless volunteers are the unofficial helpers for the festival. You've been asked to make sure everything runs smoothly, which is a bit like being told to keep a thunderstorm organized. Your first job? Head to the amphitheater and prepare the seating. Simple enough, until you realize that by prepare, they mean scrape melted wax, bird droppings, and the remains of last year's snackless rage from the stone benches. As you work, you overhear the chorus of actors rehearsing on the wooden stage. There's wailing, arm flinging, and a surprisingly catchy line about the futility of hope delivered entirely in falsetto. One of them faints, probably for effect. Or dehydration. Hard to tell. Eventually, the festival's high priest marches in with a scroll and a trumpet bearer. He blows the trumpet. It sounds like a goose being startled. All rise, someone calls. Everyone ignores them. Today, we celebrate Dionysus with a week of performances, tragedies, comedies, possibly interpretive dance. No one is sure if that last one is a threat or a promise. The priest clears his throat. We await the appearance of Dionysus, bringer of joy and fermented things. Cheers erupt. The crowd looks to the east gate. Nothing. They look to the west gate. Still, nothing. Someone suggests maybe Dionysus already arrived, invisibly, and is sitting amongst them. This sparks a brief panic and multiple apologies to nearby goats and strangers who may or may not be gods in disguise. After 30 awkward minutes, a runner arrives, panting. Dionysus is indisposed. The priest blinks. He's what now? Resting in the grove, on a bed of fermented grapes. He may have fermented with them. It's unclear. Classic, someone murmurs. You sigh. The sun is now dipping low, and shadows stretch across the theater steps like spilled ink. The first performance was supposed to begin an hour ago, but with no Dionysus, no one dares start. So instead, people wait, and someone somewhere starts chewing on a reed just for something. to do with their mouth. There is no popcorn. There are no olives. There are no dates. Not even stale bread or vaguely suspicious cheese. You feel a gurgle of protest from your stomach. You look around, half hoping for a wandering vendor, but this is Athens. Vendors exist, of course, but they sell oil, tunics, or dramatic masks. No one has thought to bring snacks to the theater. Yet. Somewhere behind you, a child whines. A mother rummages in a pouch and pulls out a single raisin, which she breaks into 3 pieces. The children suck on them like sacred relics. Your stomach growls louder. The amphitheater quiets, a great hush sweeping over the crowd. Was that thunder? Someone whispers. No, just the guy in the 3rd row. Poor soul, you are that guy. At that moment, an elderly man with a walking stick and an enormous satchel shuffles past you. He mutters something about goat cheese for the gods and herbs that bite back. You blink. Is he a cook, a priest, a lunatic? The last thought seems most likely, until he opens his satchel and the scent hits you. Warm, salty, slightly burnt in a good way. Like hope, if hope were made of roasted cheese. Your knees nearly buckle. You watch as he sneaks a bite behind a column. Crumbs fall like divine manna. You're about to say something. Ask where he got it, if he's selling, if he's taking apprentices, when a gong rings. The god awakens, someone cries. Everyone turns, and sure enough, stumbling in with grape-stained robes and a crown made of ivy and regret, is Dionysus himself. The god hiccups. Where's the food? You blink. Did the god of wine, drama, ecstasy, and chaos just stumble into the amphitheater and ask for food? Yes. Yes, he did. He's swaying slightly, either from sacred inspiration or having slept too long on a mattress made of grapes. One of his sandals is missing, replaced by a fig leaf tied around his foot. His ivy crown looks suspiciously like it was stolen from a decorative arch. But none of that matters, because Dionysus, in all his divine glory, just locked eyes with the elderly man and muttered, You smell like satisfaction. There's a pause so long you can hear a pebble roll down the steps. The old man, to his credit, doesn't flinch. He holds up a small skewer with golden brown cheese cubes, slightly charred at the edges. They glisten in the sunset. They also sizzle a bit, which seems unlikely since there's no fire nearby. Snack? He offers. The crowd collectively gasps. Someone clutches their pearls. Someone else clutches someone else's pearls. You remember that food during sacred performances is considered taboo, at least officially. The idea is that the experience should be pure and undistracted. But purity is a tough sell when you've been sitting on stone for 2 hours and haven't eaten since sunrise. Dionysus doesn't hesitate. He takes the skewer. He bites. The god closes his eyes. For a moment, he is completely still. You swear you see a small tear form in the corner of his eye. Then, by the fermented beard of my Uncle Poseidon, this is divine. The crowd erupts, and just like that, everything you thought you knew about theater etiquette is turned upside down. Bring him forth, Dionysus commands, waving dramatically at the cheese vendor. The old man is carried down the stairs by a group of enthusiastic satyrs who appear out of nowhere. Honestly, satyrs always appear out of nowhere. It's part of their brand. He's placed before the god, who now sits cross-legged on a throne someone definitely just assembled. From spare amphorae and theater props. What is this ambrosial concoction? Dionysus asks, licking a finger. Just goat cheese, the old man shrugs. Bit of honey, sprig of thyme, roasted over cedar. The crowd murmurs as if he just described alchemy. One guy in the back yells, "What is thyme?" Dionysus smiles, then makes a declaration that echoes through the theater. From this moment forth, no performance shall proceed without sustenance. Let snacks become sacred. Cheers. Actual cheers. You cheer too, though mostly because you're hungry enough to eat a sandal. The high priest looks pale. But But the rules, Dionysus interrupts, are mine to rewrite. He plucks a scroll from the priest's belt, dips it into a wine jug, and sets it on fire. The symbolism is not subtle. Everyone claps. Almost immediately, chaos turns festive. People begin whispering ideas. What else could one eat during a tragedy? Figs stuffed with almonds, honeyed flatbread, olives on sticks. You overhear someone suggest crunchy roasted chickpeas, and someone else laughs so hard they choke on air. Meanwhile, Dionysus is now lying on his side, feeding himself cheese with one hand and fanning himself with a theater mask in the other. You notice he's smeared honey across his cheek and doesn't care. Honestly, it's a vibe. But then, like any good drama, tension sneaks in. A stern-looking woman in embroidered robes steps forward from the crowd. She's clearly someone important. She has that look that says, "I correct people's grammar, uninvited." "My Lord Dionysus," she says coolly, "if food is permitted, what's to stop the people from treating the sacred stage like a marketplace? Will we have vendors yelling prices mid-monologue?" Dionysus pauses, cheese halfway to his mouth. It's a fair point. You don't want the climax of a tragic play, say, someone discovering their long-lost son was also their uncle's ghost, interrupted by someone shouting, "Hot cheese here? Get your cheese on a stick." He sits up, wipes his fingers on his robe. Dramatically, "We will have limits." A hush again. "We will have pairings." Now, people are confused. Each play, he continues, eyes gleaming with theatrical mischief, shall have one official snack, chosen for its poetic resonance, its emotional bite. You stifle a giggle. Did he just say emotional bite? Yes, he continues, gaining momentum. A tragedy may be served with something sharp and salty. A comedy with something soft and absurd. A myth, perhaps, paired with something that feels ancient in the mouth. Someone in the crowd mutters, "Is that a metaphor or a recipe?" No one knows, but everyone's in awe. Dionysus, for all his chaos, has spoken like a true curator of taste and taste experiences. He snaps his fingers. "You," he says, pointing directly at you. "Your soul leaves your body. You look like you understand suffering. You shall be my snack curator." You blink. What? He tosses you a fig. You almost drop it. That's your first challenge. Choose the perfect snack for tomorrow's tragedy. One that makes people feel more deeply. One that reminds them of the sorrow of existence, but also of the comfort of chewing. Your mouth opens, but no sound comes out. The curtain, which is actually a large sheet held by two exhausted teens, drops. The first performance begins tomorrow, and now you, somehow, are in charge of inventing the world's first theatrical pairing menu. So now you're the official snack curator of Dionysus. It's not a title you ever imagined for yourself. You weren't trained for this. No one ever said, "Study hard, and one day a drunken god will appoint you snack czar of the arts." But here we are. You sit on a low stone step, your tunic already sticky from excitement, sweat, and a tiny bit of honey. Long story, short skewer. Around you, Athens is buzzing like a hive that just discovered the concept of seasoning. You're supposed to invent the perfect snack to accompany a tragedy being performed at noon tomorrow. It's titled Oedipus Probably. You've been assured it's very emotional, slightly prophetic, and ends with a lot of yelling and existential dread. You need a snack that matches the mood. You think hard. What's sorrowful, yet rich? What? Says, alas, fate is cruel, but also, nice texture? Your stomach rumbles with pressure. Around you, the city's energy has shifted. Street vendors, once focused on cloth and wine, now murmur recipes and experiment with ingredients. A potter has switched from bowls to snack plates. A sculptor carves the first amphora labeled dip. You overhear a poet proclaim, and lo, our mouths now feast while our hearts break. He's crying. No one's sure if it's from emotion or spicy pickled onions. Back in the theater, you visit the chorus rehearsals. They're practicing synchronized wailing while holding wooden masks. Their passion is real. Their projection is impressive. Their breath? Not great. You pace the back rows, scribbling on the back of an abandoned script with a bit of charcoal. Snack goals, not crunchy, too loud, not soupy, dangerous on stairs. Not sticky, tragedy, says hands on face, says disaster. You consider olives again, but they roll. Flatbread? Boring. Dates? Too romantic. Then a stranger slides onto the step beside you. Hooded, mysterious, smells faintly of time and rebellion. He hands you a small wrapped parcel. For the tragedy, he whispers, then vanishes into the shadows like someone who's read too many scrolls on dramatic timing. You unwrap the bundle carefully. Inside is something unfamiliar. Golden brown, soft, but slightly crisp at the edges. A warm aroma wafts upward. Figs, goat cheese, walnuts, and something smoky. You take a bite. Immediately you are overwhelmed by emotion. Not from taste alone, but from how it feels in your soul. Sweet, yes. But there's bitterness. A hint of ash, like something beautiful that burned anyway. The flavor lingers, mournful, like a song without a chorus. You start crying. That's when you know. This is the one. You bring the parcel straight to Dionysus. He's napping in a vine hammock made of actual vines. You wait for him to wake. You try not to think about the ants. When he finally stirs, you present the creation. A tragedy tart, he muses, examining the contents. Figs for fate, you explain. Goat cheese for grief. Walnuts for complexity. Smoky crust for the irreversible. Takes a bite. He doesn't speak for a full minute. Then he says simply, "Serve it warm." By the next morning, the recipe has spread like wildfire. You stand at the back of the amphitheater, watching rows of theater-goers gently weep into parchment napkins. The play is devastating. Something about blindness, betrayal, and a suspicious number of riddles involving feet. But every few lines, someone takes a bite of your tragedy tart and lets out a sigh. A tragic sigh, mind you. It's still theater. People are moved. By the story, yes, but also by the comforting weight of food in hand, the crumble of crust, the subtle tug between sweet and sour, the way it makes the unbearable just slightly more bearable. Midway through Act 2, a chorus member breaks down crying. It's unclear if it's the dialogue or the fact that he dropped his tart. At the curtain fall, sheet fall, Dionysus stands, arms wide, cheeks full of pastry. A triumph. He shouts, "This snack shall live forever in the annals of art." He wipes his mouth on his sleeve and declares that every play from now on must include a snack tailored to its emotional purpose. You try to protest, maybe a little overwhelmed by the responsibility, but he simply claps you on the back so hard you nearly drop your fig tart. "You've changed the world." He grins. "You really hope not in a way that will require taxes." That night, as you walk home through streets echoing with laughter, sobs, and the sound of crackling pastry crusts, you realize something strange. You're not just the snack curator anymore. You're a pioneer of culinary dramaturgy. And tomorrow, the comedies begin. The next morning hits differently. Instead of groaning awake with the dread of another 5-hour tragedy and stone bench numb butt, you wake to a strange new energy in the air, like the city itself is smirking. Even the pigeons seem more sarcastic. Today is Comedy Day, and you, the snack curator of Dionysus, yes, it's on a clay nameplate now, have a new mission. Invent a snack that pairs with laughter. The stakes are weirdly high. The playwrights are competing for prestige, the actors for applause, and you for approval from a wine god with the emotional range of a mythological soap opera. You make your way back to the amphitheater, past merchants shouting, "Now with 12% fewer olive pits." And buy one cheese stick, get your dignity back free. Dionysus is already lounging in the front row, draped across 3 seats, sipping wine from a helmet someone tried to use in a play about Sparta. He sees you and raises a fig in greeting. Make them laugh, he says, but make them chew. You nod solemnly, as if you've trained your whole life for this moment. You haven't, of course. 2 days ago, your job involved sorting pottery shards and occasionally fetching lukewarm wine. You settle onto a bench and begin your thinking ritual, staring blankly at the horizon and pretending you aren't panicking. What is funny food? Not. Just edible, but absurd. Something that makes people giggle and go, something unexpected, maybe a little squishy. Your brain starts listing things: olives on a string, bread shaped like philosophical arguments, cheese disguised as fruit. Then, a group of satyrs prances by, juggling small fried balls of something golden. They're singing a questionable song about goats that definitely didn't get past any censors. One of them trips, flinging a ball into the air. It lands beside you. You sniff it. You poke it. You bite it. It's crispy, hollow. And then, boom, flavor. Creamy cheese inside, with herbs and a slight zing that tastes like someone dared a lemon to fight a garlic clove. It is perfect. It's also ridiculous. You look up. The satyr is still sprawled on the ground, but gives you a thumbs up. You sprint, yes, actually sprint, back to the food stalls and demand to know what that wonder ball was. The vendor shrugs. Cheese puff. Accident, really. Tried to bake cheese. Overdid it. It exploded. You immediately order 2 dozen. Back at the amphitheater, you set up a tasting station beside the stage. Dionysus is intrigued. Cheese puffs? He asks, squinting. They look like fried clouds. They're perfect for comedy, you explain. They're silly, unexpected. They crunch at all the wrong moments. You can't eat them seriously. He tries one. It crunches so loudly it drowns out an actor's opening line. Dionysus wheezes with delight. Approved, he cries. Let the show begin. The first comedy is Chaos, titled Zeus and the Laundry List. It involves mistaken identities, 2 goats in wigs, and a man trying to marry a statue. There are 5 musical numbers, none of them on purpose. The audience is howling, partially from laughter, partially from trying not to choke on cheese puffs during punchlines. At one point, a puff flies through the air and lands squarely in the eye. Playwright's wine cup. He toasts it like it's a badge of honor. You watch from the wings, amazed. The snacks don't just fill stomachs, they enhance the emotion. The absurdity of a man monologuing about his feelings to a clay amphora is somehow funnier when you're holding a puff that exploded by accident. You catch Dionysus wiping tears from his eyes. These snacks, he sniffles, they're not just food, they're part of the play. Someone in the row behind him loudly whispers, he says that every time he's tipsy. After the final curtain fall, which, once again, is a sheet, this one with cartoon goats painted on it, the crowd erupts in applause. They cheer the actors, they cheer the playwright. Then they chant, "Puffs! Puffs! Puffs!" You bow instinctively, then remember you're not on stage. Later that night, you find yourself sitting beside Dionysus again. He's gazing at the moon, his vine crown slightly askew. Do you think snacks could solve war? He asks. Probably not, you reply, but they could definitely make the meetings less tense. He nods solemnly, then promptly falls asleep mid-sip. You gently adjust his crown and rise, brushing crumbs from your tunic. Tomorrow is the Seder, play, which means it's going to get weird. You already have a feeling. You'll need something that tastes like mischief. You wake up to flute music and mild screaming, which can only mean one thing. It's Seder play day. If tragedy is about pain and fate and comedy about irony and embarrassment, then Seder plays are about chaos. Glorious, irreverent, vine-soaked chaos. Imagine if a drunken forest spirit wrote fan fiction about the myths while giggling into a wineskin, and then performed it half naked, covered in mud. That's a Seder play, and today you need to match that energy with a snack. No pressure. You shuffle toward the theater, rubbing sleep from your eyes, still full from last night's celebratory cheese puff binge. The city is already buzzing. Someone's painted goat hooves on the cobblestones. A group of teenagers wearing animal tails run by yelling, "All hail the mighty thirst." Dionysus passes you in the opposite direction, riding a cart pulled by, you're not sure. It might be a horse. It might be 5 satyrs in a horse costume. You decide not to ask. He shouts at you, "Make it sticky! That's all. Just make it sticky." You nod slowly. Okay. And so begins your search for the perfect satyr play snack. You begin with a mental checklist. Silly messy. Slightly inappropriate looking, but still PG-13 portable for people who dance mid-performance. You stop by a honey merchant. Just in case. She eyes you warily. "You looking for sacrificial grade or party grade?" "Party grade," you say. She hands you a wooden spoon dipped in golden goo and says, "Go nuts." You do. Figuratively and literally, because right next to her is a nut vendor roasting almonds in a pan that smells like roasted heaven. Suddenly, you see it. A vision. Honey. Nuts. Something squishy. Something you have to lick off your fingers in full. View of the gods. You run, yes, again, to your usual snack stall contact. The one who once accidentally fried cheese into legend. "I have an idea," you whisper. It's like chaos in bite form. The result? Honey-drizzled fig balls rolled in roasted nuts. Yeah. They're sticky. They're sweet. They're round. They bounce when dropped. They're undignified and a little embarrassing to eat gracefully, which is exactly what you want. You present them to Dionysus. He picks one up, sniffs it, pokes it, then pops it in his mouth. His eyes go wide. I feel like taking my clothes off and yelling about goats. That's the idea. He turns to the crowd, throws his arms open, and declares, "Let there be balls." People cheer. Someone faints. A child in the back asks their mother if they can have 3. The satyr play begins. The plot is hard to follow. Something about Poseidon falling in love with a tree, a magical barrel that grants wishes but only in rhymes, and a talking fish with commitment issues. Everyone is in various stages of intoxication, physically or emotionally. There is shouting. There is clapping. At one point, 3 actors climb into a barrel, disappear, and re-emerge covered in glitter. No one knows how. No one questions it. The honey nut fig balls are everywhere. People throw them. People juggle them. One man uses 2 as makeshift eyes and spends the entire second act pretending to be the oracle of snacks. You watch the chaos unfold and realize something strange. This isn't just about flavor anymore. You're feeding the tone of the theater. Your snack has become a character in the performance. It's sticky, it's sweet, it's confusing, and it gets all over your robe if you're not careful, just like the play. You hear Dionysus behind you whispering to himself, "It's all coming together." Then loudly, "I want a golden statue of this one, with real nuts." No one is sure if he means it metaphorically or literally. Knowing Dionysus, he'll commission both. As the curtain falls for the 3rd time, someone keeps misdropping the sheet. The crowd is on their feet. They cheer, they chant. Someone stage dives into a pile of fig balls. You slump onto the steps, exhausted, sticky, proud. Tomorrow, it's time for the myth retellings, serious tales told with dramatic flair, which means you'll need a snack with layers, like onions or irony. You wake up with honey on your elbow. You're not sure how it got there, but given yesterday's fig ball frenzy, you decide not to ask questions. You roll out of bed, okay, straw mat, and stretch, already thinking about what today's myth retelling might throw at you. The schedule says, the birth of Athena with interpretive shields. You sigh. It's myth day. The actors are already warming up in the amphitheater by the time you arrive. One is practicing emerging dramatically from a prop skull, while another is rehearsing her goddess glare in a shard of bronze polished just enough to be a mirror. The narrator for the day walks around in sandals made entirely of scrolls. You feel tired just watching. Dionysus is present, sprawled over a stack of cushions and occasionally throwing olives at pigeons. He sees you and raises an eyebrow. Today's myth, he says, is about rebirth, wisdom, and head trauma. Feed accordingly. Right. Of course. No pressure. You walk through the agora, mulling over what a snack for a myth should be. It has to be more refined than fig balls, but still captivating. Something layered, complex. A little weird. You try to imagine flavors as metaphors. Chewy like the inevitability of fate. Sweet like stolen fire. A little bitter like turning into a tree because you lost a weaving contest with a goddess. You pass a baker arranging triangular parcels on a tray. They glisten with oil and smell faintly of honey, sesame, and something spiced. What's in those, you ask? The baker shrugs. Depends. Each one's different. Some sweet, some savory. It's a game. A snack. With a twist, you take one. Bite in. Warm honey and cinnamon greet your tongue. It's soft, then flaky, then chewy. There's a walnut in there. Maybe two. It's unexpected. It's symbolic. It's perfect. You grin. I'll take 100. Back at the theater, you announce the official snack of the myth retelling, the Oracle Pocket, little hand pies, folded into triangles, sealed with olive oil, and filled with mysterious combinations. No two alike. Like fate, you explain to the actors, or like dating, one mutters. You distribute them in woven baskets as the crowd settles in. Dionysus takes 3 at once and immediately starts assigning meaning to each. This one means betrayal. This one means goats. This one is just lunch. The play begins. It's a strange one. The myth of Athena's birth is dramatic on a good day. Zeus gets a headache, a massive one. Instead of aspirin, he gets Hephaestus to hit him in the head with an axe. Out pops Athena, fully armored, glowing, possibly yelling. Today's performance adds interpretive shield dancing. Also, a lot of shouting in slow motion. The Oracle Pockets are a hit. They're quiet to eat, perfect for the contemplative mood. People react audibly when they discover a surprising filling. Someone gasps when they bite into pomegranate seeds. Someone else quietly goes, "Huh?" at a mouthful of rosemary cheese. The variety becomes part of the experience. Every emotion on stage is matched by a different bite in the crowd. You sit beside a woman who's tearing up at the part where Athena speaks her first words. "It's the rosemary," she says, sniffing. "Tastes like memory." You nod. Or, maybe she means the acting. Either way, the food is working. At one point, Dionysus raises a hand dramatically and says, "This one has onions, tragedy," and then proceeds to eat 5 more. By the time Athena ascends to Mount Olympus on a suspiciously squeaky pulley system, the crowd is spellbound. The actors bow. The chorus hums. A small child offers the final line. And thus from pain came purpose. Everyone exhales. Dionysus stands. That, he declares, was the snackiest myth yet. You allow yourself a small smile. Not bad for someone who used to organize amphora deliveries. He claps you on the back. "Tomorrow, we tell love stories," he says. "You'll need something soft, but also sharp and slightly confusing." You nod. Something romantic, something dangerous, something that crumbles if held too tightly, like love. Today, the air smells like roses, honey, and mild heartbreak, which makes sense because it's Love Story Day. The amphitheater has been decorated, if tossed with flower petals and draped in mismatched tunics, counts as decoration. There, are hearts carved into benches. Someone's drawn a crude version of Aphrodite on the stage wall, complete with a 6-pack. You suspect it was Dionysus. You arrive early, hoping for a quiet moment, but instead, you find a couple mid-argument over whether their matching tunics are too clingy, metaphorically. You decide to walk the long way around. Dionysus greets you by dramatically tossing rose petals in your face. Love, he proclaims, is confusion, wrapped in sugar, dipped in longing, and baked until it crumbles. Cool, you say, coughing, on a petal. I'll translate that into a snack. He leans closer, eyes wide. Make it complicated. Then he stumbles off to recite bad poetry at a goat. You sit on a warm stone step and begin your notes. What does love taste like? It starts sweet, sure, but then there's bitterness, regret, jealousy, the scent of someone who left. And yet, it should make you want more. Something with layers, something that melts, but might also crack. A passing vendor offers you a pastry. You take it automatically, still deep in thought, then freeze mid-bite. It's soft, warm, filled with something sticky, maybe date paste, maybe heartbreak, and right at the center, a single almond, sharp, unexpected, a crunch where there should have been a sigh. You look up. The vendor smiles. It's called Aphrodite's regret. You nearly drop your charcoal. Did you invent this? My ex did, she shrugs, out of spite. You buy 20. You name today's snack, bittersweet bites, a soft pastry filled with spiced date and fig, laced with orange peel and honey, comforting and seductive, until you hit the single almond and remember why you swore off feelings. The say tagline practically writes itself. For every time they said, "It's not you, it's Olympus." You present the idea to Dionysus. He takes a bite, chews slowly, then widens his eyes as the almond hits. Is this what heartbreak feels like? He gasps. Yes, I hate it. He eats 2 more. The performance is a double feature, Eros and Psyche, followed by Orpheus, but maybe this time he doesn't. Look back. The first play is dreamy, draped in silk and sighs. The actors speak in slow, lingering vowels. Psyche floats around like she's perpetually mid-hug. The crowd eats their bittersweet bites with reverence, like each one might whisper a forgotten lover's name into their mouths. Then comes Orpheus. People brace, because everyone knows the story. Boy loves girl. Girl dies. Boy sings. Girl undies. Boy looks back. Girl dies again. Tragic, poetic, terrible decision-making. But this version has a twist. Just as Orpheus is walking out of the underworld, hand in hand with Eurydice, the stage darkens. He turns. He looks, but instead of fading, she throws a bittersweet bite at his head. "I told you not to look," she yells. The audience gasps. Orpheus fumbles, drops his lyre, and just says, "Worth it." Cue applause. After the curtain falls, Dionysus stands. That, he declares, was confusing, delicious, and mildly unhinged, just like love. He turns to you, his robe now decorated with crumbs and what looks like lipstick. "You," he says, pointing his fig skewer at you. "You understand emotion. You understand snacks. Tomorrow, be ready." You nod. "What's the theme?" He smirks. "War." You pause. "You want me to cater war?" He nods gravely. You sigh, already imagining something crunchy, fiery, and liable to cause arguments. But you're in too deep now. Snack curator of the gods doesn't quit. You wake to the sound of metal clanking and someone yelling, "This is for Sparta's appetite," which can only mean one thing. It's War Day. The festival program describes today's theatrical experience as the Siege of Thebes, now, with more screaming. You immediately brace yourself for blood, betrayal, and a truly excessive number of dramatic lunges. And you, of course, are expected to provide the perfect wartime snack. It's fine. Totally fine. You trudge through the city center, where the usual cheerful bustle has transformed into military cosplay. Kids are chasing each other with wooden swords. A woman yells at her goat for eating her papier-mâché helmet. A vendor is selling helmets made of stale bread. Dionysus is already at the amphitheater, wearing a breastplate over his robe and smearing war paint on his cheeks with a pastry brush. "Bring me something that crunches like bone and burns like vengeance," he shouts. You try to smile. "Do you want dipping sauce with that?" He doesn't answer. He's too busy trying to stab a wine jug. You retreat to your corner of the agora to brainstorm. War is complicated. It's hot. It's loud. It's full of bad decisions, heroic speeches, and sandals flying off mid-charge. You think of the soldiers, brave, blustering, boisterous. You think of the generals, cold, calculating, weirdly into monologues. You need something that can survive a battle, but also deliver emotional texture, something fiery, something loud. And then, as if by divine snackspiration, you hear it, a crunch so sharp it turns heads. You spin toward the sound. A young vendor is slamming something into a mortar and tossing it into a clay oven. "What is that?" you ask, cautiously hopeful. He grins. "Spiced chickpea shards. We call it crisps of wrath. Want one?" You take a bite. Crunch. Your ears ring. Your nose tingles with pepper and garlic. Your tongue gets hit with cumin and citrus. The edges are jagged like a broken treaty. There's heat, nothing outrageous, but enough to say, "We do not negotiate with your palate." It is simply war in snack form. You order an amphorafull. Back at the amphitheater, you unveil today's pairing. Crisps of wrath, oven-roasted shards of spiced chickpea dough, seasoned with fire, dusted with hubris, and ideal for chewing angrily. While shouting monologues about betrayal, Dionysus eats 3 and declares, "I would go to war for this." You suspect he thinks that's a pun. You let it slide. The performance begins. The play opens with thunder, even though there's no storm. Someone's banging a metal sheet backstage. Soldiers march across the stage in slow motion. The chorus sings in minor key. There's fire, probably too much fire. You sit among the crowd, passing crisps of wrath down the row. Everyone's crunching loudly. It's impossible not to. The snack is designed for rage. Every bite is a protest, a battle, a resolution you didn't stick to. On stage, 2 generals argue over who gets to sacrifice whom. Their swords clash, badly, choreographed, and their dialogue echoes. Is loyalty a shield or a sword in disguise? Someone next to you bites dramatically and whispers, "That tastes like guilt." You nod. You don't know what they ate, but it does. The play ends with all but one character dead and the survivor delivering a 5-minute speech about honor, legacy, and the price of hummus. The curtain drops. The audience is stunned or full. Maybe both. Dionysus stands slowly, dusts spice off his chest plate and says, "That was delicious carnage." He grabs you by the shoulders. "Tomorrow," he says, voice solemn, "we celebrate victory." You blink. "But war just ended." He grins. "And now we feast." You rub your temples. Looks like you're cooking for a triumph now. You wake up to the sound of someone dramatically narrating their breakfast. I rise, nourished by grain and purpose. Ah, Hero Day. You roll over, groan into your tunic, and prepare yourself for what is arguably the most theatrical day of the entire festival. Not because of the content, but because of the performers. Hero Day is when every actor suddenly thinks they are the character. They yell in doorways. They leap over fruit carts. One tried to sword fight a shadow yesterday, and you've been tasked by Dionysus himself to create a snack that embodies heroism. Make it bold. He cried last night, wine-drunk and weeping into a laurel wreath. Make it dramatic. Make it something you earn. Right, because that's easy. You stumble through the agora, watching the preparations. People are wearing bronze chest plates made of painted bark. A group of boys is sword fighting with leeks. Someone is chanting, "To glory." Every time they buy something, you pause in front of a stall where a cook is roasting something over coals. The smell hits you like a prophecy, smoky, rich, and a little wild. You ask what it is. Boar jerky, she replies. Dipped in garlic wine glaze, it bites back. You nod slowly. You take a piece. It's chewy, spicy, charred, like meat that survived something. It's not elegant, but it's brave. You start building from there. Back at your prep station, you assemble the hero's bite, strips of spiced boar jerky glazed with wine reduction, and a touch of honey wrapped in crisp barley flatbread, sprinkled with cracked pepper and a dusting of ash salt. It's primal, crunchy, chewy, slightly smoky. You need 2 hands to eat it, and maybe a third for dramatic gestures. The tagline writes itself, conquer the flavor or be conquered. Dionysus samples it with one eyebrow raised. He chews, hard, chews again, swallows. I feel like I should punch something inspirational. Perfect, you say. The performance is Theseus and the Maze of Many Regrets. It's part epic, part group therapy session. Theseus battles monsters, makes questionable romantic choices, gets lost emotionally, and literally, and delivers at least 4 speeches beginning with, "Who am I?" The actors are sweaty before Act 1 ends. The hero's bite is passed through the crowd like sacred weaponry. People gnaw. People wipe grease off scrolls. One man yells, "I am invincible," after eating 2. He is not. He immediately trips on a tiuma goat. The snack becomes part of the ritual. After each heroic act on stage, someone in the audience takes a triumphant bite. It's not subtle. It is awesome. Even the actors start snacking on stage. One of the chorus members uses a flatbread wrap as a shield prop. It is quickly eaten by his fellow soldiers mid-song. By the end of the play, Theseus has lost himself again, and found a slightly better version of himself. The Minotaur is defeated by interpretive dance and shouting. Everyone cheers. Everyone chomps. Dionysus stands. He raises a jerky-wrapped flatbread like a torch. To those who fight, to those who fall, to those who snack boldly, someone the back yells, "To flavor!" You slump onto a bench, exhausted but victorious. Tomorrow, it's Everyday Life Day, which sounds chill. But deep down, you know it's going to be way harder to flavor boredom than battle. You wake up expecting chaos. Instead, you're met with silence, birdsong, a breeze, someone sweeping dust off a marble step, a donkey yawning. It's almost unsettling because today is Everyday Life Day, the festival's most low-key theme. No gods, no monsters, no quests or curses or labyrinths, just laundry, arguments over olives, someone missing their sandal and blaming fate. And yet, this is exactly the day Dionysus said, "You'll need your subtlest snack yet." Because if war is heat and heroism is spice, then everyday life is texture, comfort, the rhythm of waking up again and again and finding small joys, like a warm rock in the sun or figs that don't bite back. You stretch, you crack your neck. You prepare for the hardest flavor challenge so far, making ordinary feel meaningful. You wander the agora slowly, observing. A mother is scolding her son gently for climbing a statue. 2 men argue over whose turn it is to bring oil. A girl sings while shelling beans into a basket. This is Athens on autopilot, and there's something beautiful about it. You duck into a baker's corner, one of the quieter stalls. A small woman is shaping dough with long, practiced fingers. "What's that?" you ask. She shrugs. "Barley rings. My grandmother's recipe. Nothing special." You try one and stop mid-chew. It's crisp on the outside, soft inside, and faintly flavored with anise and salt. It doesn't shout. It settles. It tastes like sunrise, like old stories, like a moment between 2 larger things. You look up, eyes wide. "It's perfect," she frowns. "For what?" "For the quiet between epics." You name today's snack crisps of the everyday, baked barley rings, flavored with just enough herb and salt to keep you paying attention. Meant to be held in one hand while the other does laundry or watches the wind. You arrange baskets of them along the amphitheater. Dionysus arrives late, looking mildly hungover and wearing only one sandal. Are they bland? He asks. They're patient, you say. He blinks. Well, that's worse. He eats one. He pauses, then takes another. Fine, it's very snackable. Patience. The play today is titled 3 Clay Pots and a Very Long Tuesday. It follows a potter, a fish seller, and a goat who may or may not be symbolic. The plot? They try to fix a broken door and argue about whose fault it is that the market keeps flooding. That's it. No gods, no murder, just life, and it's wonderful. People laugh softly, not belly laughs, knowing ones. They nod when characters forget where they put their tunic. They hum when someone sings a lullaby. At one point, a man in the crowd sighs and says, "That happened to me once." The crisps of the everyday get passed around silently. No one shouts about them. No one throws them. They just are. You watch as a child absent-mindedly nibbles one while drawing in the dirt. Her parents don't stop her. There's something sacred in the ordinary, and everyone feels it today. Even Dionysus, who's now lying down with a barley ring on each finger like edible jewelry, mutters, "This is boring. I love it." The play ends not with a roar, but with a quiet line, and tomorrow, the pots will still be here. No music, just silence. Then, soft clapping. Real, honest, human clapping. Like saying, "Thank you for something you didn't know you needed." Dionysus sits up. "That was the most nothing I've ever enjoyed." He turns to you. "Tomorrow," he says, voice low, "we return to the divine." You blink. "Myth again?" "No," he whispers, "dreams." And just like that, your mind starts racing. What does a dream taste like? You'll find out tomorrow. You wake up unsure if you're still dreaming. The light outside your window is pale blue and oddly soft, as if someone painted it instead of the sun rising. There's music in the air, harps maybe, or wind through wind chimes made from old lyres. Today is Dream Day. You don't fully remember agreeing to this theme, but Dionysus insists it's been on the schedule since the beginning. "We've wept, we've laughed, we've gone to war," he said last night, wine dripping from his chin. But now we slip into the unreal, into possibility, into snacks. That don't quite make sense. Right. Snacks that don't make sense. Perfect. The city is different today. People speak in riddles. Doors are painted where no doors belong. Someone has constructed a floating bed using reeds and goat skin. A woman walks by carrying a teapot with smoke pouring from the spout, except the smoke turns into butterflies halfway up. You see Dionysus lounging beneath a fig tree upside down, not hanging from a branch, just upside down, like the laws of gravity politely agreed to suspend themselves for his aesthetic. He waves at you and says, "Make me a snack that forgets it was food." You open your mouth to respond, but a goat sneezes nearby and your train of thought completely derails. Time to find the flavor of dreams. You wander through the quieter corners of the agora, past spice merchants and silent poets. At the edge of the market, a woman is selling round, glowing sweets in shallow clay bowls. They shimmer in the sun. Not reflect, shimmer, like moonlight in syrup. "What are they?" you ask. She shrugs. "They're not always the same. I forget the recipe. Every morning, my hands remember it better than my mouth." You bite one. It's like chewing on a cloud that tells a story. Lavender, rosewater, sesame, a hint of cardamom. Then, something sharp, lemon peel, that vanishes just as you recognize it. The texture shifts as you chew, soft, then chewy, then it melts away like a half-remembered dream. You blink. "How did you—" She's gone. You look down. The bowl is full. You call the snack, whispers of hypnos, soft dream paste rounds made of honey, milk, sesame, and herbs. Dusted with powdered rose and a breath of citrus, they vanish on the tongue. Some say each one tastes like a dream you once had and forgot. You arrange them in small, shallow dishes at the amphitheater. People approach them like offerings. No one eats quickly, no one takes two. Dionysus arrives wearing a robe made entirely of night-colored fabric and stars cut from parchment. "Are they edible?" he asks. "They're edible enough," you reply. He eats one. He stops. He closes his eyes. "I'm standing in a meadow that doesn't exist," he says. "My mother's singing. My wine is floating. I think I'm in love with a cloud." "That sounds right," you say. The performance today isn't really a play. It's a drifting of scenes, titled "When Hermes Forgot to Wake Up." It begins with a flute, a long silence, and then a monologue delivered in rhyme by a chorus of pillows. Characters appear and disappear. They change names mid-scene. Someone turns into a tree halfway through a conversation and no one mentions it. There is no plot. Or maybe there are 5. People eat their whispers of hypnosis slowly, as if chewing might wake them up. It never does. A man beside you starts crying softly. When asked why, he says, "I just remembered a dream I had as a child. I was a bird, but also a recipe." You nod. Same. When the show ends, though no one is quite sure when it began, the audience rises slowly. No one claps, but no one leaves either. They just sit quietly, watching the stage like it might sprout wings and fly away. Dionysus walks up behind you, holding his now empty bowl. "That," he says, "was nonsense." You nod. He smiles. "Let's do it again next year." Then he leans closer. "Tomorrow, we return to the world, to something raw, something honest." You raise an eyebrow. "What theme?" He looks into the distance. "Loss." "Ah, of course, the only flavor harder to swallow than dreams." You wake with heaviness in your chest. Even before you open your eyes, you know, today will be different. There's no music in the air, no footsteps running past. Even the pigeons seem muted, because today is lost day. The final emotional valley. In the festival's great theatrical mountain range, no gods, no glory, just grief, memory, and the ache of things gone. You rise slowly, your bones quieter than usual. Outside, the streets of Athens are subdued. The vendors speak softly. People wear darker cloth. Someone has left a trail of wilted laurel branches leading toward the amphitheater. Even Dionysus is quiet. He sits at the edge of the theater, not his usual throne of props and pillows, but on a bare stone bench. His robe is unbelted. His crown is just a tangle of ivy, half fallen. You sit beside him without speaking. After a while, he says, "What does morning taste like?" you think. You say, "Warm." He nods. "You'll need to feed the ache," he whispers, but gently. You go walking, not toward the bustling market, but to the outskirts, where old women dry herbs and whisper songs to themselves. There, an elder offers you a small cup of something. You sip. It's warm, like holding someone's hand in silence. It's lentil and barley, with fennel, lemon rind, and a hint of fig. Just enough sweetness to remember joy, not enough to feel it. You chew slowly. She nods once. We make it for funerals, but it's not about death. It's about remembering how someone used to laugh. You don't speak. You just buy all she has. Today's snack, remembrance, stew cups, soft barley and lentils, lightly spiced, served warm, in little clay bowls with a fig slice on top. Nourishing, gentle, made for silence. A food that doesn't try to fix grief, only sit beside it. You carry them back to the amphitheater yourself, no assistance, no fanfare. You arrange them in rows and let people come quietly. No shouting, no sampling, just presence. The play today is The Empty Chair of Icarus. It begins with a boy sitting in silence, then a monologue, not loud, but deliberate. He speaks of loss, of flying too close, of fathers who tried their best, of wax on skin and dreams that melted. There are no wings, only a chair. People eat their stew slowly. You hear sniffles. One man bites a fig slice and stares into the middle distance for the rest of Act 2. No one claps between scenes. No one leaves early. Even Dionysus sits still, his bowl cradled in his lap. At the end, the stage is empty. The chair remains, a single line is spoken. He was here. Then the curtain falls. No one moves for a long while. Finally, Dionysus stands. He says nothing, he simply bows, and everyone bows with him. You collect the bowls, one by one, some still half full, as if people couldn't quite finish them, as if the memory was enough. Dionysus walks beside you, and for once, doesn't make a toast. He just murmurs, "That was necessary." You nod, and he says softly, "Tomorrow we celebrate what's left." You blink. What is left? He smiles, gently, laughter and legacy. You wake to birdsong again, but this time it's not solemn. It's hopeful, a little off-key. One bird seems to be imitating a goat, but there's joy in it. There's bounce, you stretch, and your joints don't creak quite as loud. The air is softer. The sky is golden. Athens is smiling again, not wide, not loud, but gently, like someone remembering an old joke mid-tear. Because today is Laughter and Legacy Day. It's not about glory or comedy or even cheer. It's about the things that stay behind when everything else is gone. The memories, the warm meals, the stories retold at firesides and bathhouses, the snacks that become tradition. Dionysus is already at the amphitheater, this time not alone. He's surrounded by children climbing him like a statue and old men arguing about whether honey should be stirred clockwise or widdershins. He sees you and raises his cup, not full of wine today, but tea. Today, he says, we don't invent, we remember. You nod, so you go out, not to seek new ingredients, but old ones. You stop by the stall of an elderly woman who once helped you with fig paste. She's already kneading dough. I heard, she says without turning, that today you want a story. In a snack. I do. She dusts the counter with flour. My mother made sesame rounds when I passed my first school trial, said they were for wisdom. She made them again when I failed a betrothal meeting. Said they were for healing. She hands you one. It's not fancy, just honey, sesame, flour, and a pinch of salt. But when you bite in, it crunches softly, then melts with a warmth that feels like something you never meant to forget. You close your eyes. It tastes like childhood. Like laughter echoing through a house long gone. Like holding hands with someone who used to hum while cooking. You buy all she has again. Today's snack, Echo Rounds. Thin sesame and honey wafers, baked until just golden. Crisp at first, then dissolving into quiet sweetness, served with a single ribbon of dried orange peel on top, symbolizing memory, twisted but bright. You don't arrange them this time. You let the children hand them out, because this day isn't about spectacle. It's about sharing. The play today is The Woman Who Laughed at Time. It's soft, funny, wistful. It follows an old woman who defies the gods by simply refusing to stop laughing no matter how hard life gets. She dances badly. She falls in love with a poet and forgets his name. She yells at a thundercloud. She burns dinner twice and eats it anyway. And when she dies, quietly, in a chair she carved herself, the final scene is her grandchildren finding her recipe scroll, smeared with honey. The actor bows, no curtain call, just the quiet of shared breath. Then, one child in the audience giggles, another follows, Then the whole theater. Not loud, not forced, just warm, grateful laughter. Dionysus wipes his eye and mutters, "She never once mentioned me. It was perfect." Turns to you. "These echo rounds," he says. "They'll stay." You nod. "Maybe someone will bake them when this festival is just a story." "Good," he says. "Let flavor be memory." As the sun dips low and the sky bruises with purple and rose, Dionysus leans in. "Tomorrow," he whispers, "is the end." You nod. You knew it was coming. The closing, the quieting. One last story, one last snack. He rises, stretches, and says, "Make it," like the last line of a lullaby. The final morning arrives with a stillness that doesn't ask for your attention. It just is. No trumpet, no birds rehearsing comedic impersonations. Just the whisper of wind over stone and the rustle of vines winding lazily around the amphitheater. Walls. It's the last day of the festival. Not an ending, but a soft closing of the curtain, a breath before dreams. Today is farewell day. You move slower. The city moves slower. Even the goats seem to tiptoe. You pass by vendors already packing up their stalls, not with hurry, but with a kind of practiced care. The kind that says, "We'll return next year." At the amphitheater, Dionysus is already there, seated quietly, watching the light creep across the stage. His robe is simple today. No crown, no fanfare. Just ivy at his feet. You sit beside him. He says nothing. He doesn't need to, because you both know the right goodbye never raises its voice. You wander to the oldest kitchen stall, the one where every grandmother has passed through at least once, where the pots are more seasoned than some philosophers. A young woman is tending the coals today. She doesn't ask your name. She only says, "You'll want this one warm." She gives you a small bowl. Inside is a gently folded dumpling, steamed, soft, and slightly sweet. No sharp spice, no surprises. Just the scent of chamomile, a hint of dates, and something floral, perhaps elderflower or memory itself. You take a bite. It disappears with a sigh, like something meant to be gone. Today's final snack, the last full day. Delicate steamed dumpling of rice and wheat, flour filled with mashed dates, chamomile, a whisper of flower water, served warm in cupped hands, meant to be eaten in silence, in reflection, disappears without a trace. There's no tray, no basket. You carry them yourself, passing them one by one with a nod. People don't ask for more, one is enough. The closing performance is when the lights go quiet. No gods appear, no one raises a voice. It follows a stage keeper at the end of a long life, lighting one last torch, dusting one last mask, whispering to the ghosts of applause that still linger in stone. No climax, no reveal, just a quiet exit. Bow, a smile, a fade. As the final line is spoken, "We were here once." The curtain doesn't fall. It simply drifts, caught on a breeze, and never lands. The audience doesn't clap. They breathe. Then, slowly, they begin to rise. Not to leave, but to look around, to remember where they were, who they sat beside, what they tasted, what they felt. Dionysus turns to you. His eyes are clear, unshimmering for once. "You did well," he says softly. "You fed the full range of a life." You manage a smile. "Even the boring parts." "Especially the boring parts," he replies. He stands. "Come," he says. "There's one more thing to do." You walk together to the center of the amphitheater, now empty, but still humming with the memory of footsteps and laughter. He lights a single lantern, sets it in the center, then steps back and says, "Sleep well, Athens." The flame flickers once, then goes out, and the silence that follows is full, not of absence, but of everything that came before. So now, the seats are empty, the stage is still, The sky overhead fades into indigo, like the closing lid of a well-loved storybook. You remain here, sitting in the quiet, the warmth of that last dumpling still lingering gently on your tongue. There's no rush now. No actors to chase, no gods demanding fig balls or spicy shards, no deadlines. Just this moment, suspended like a candle flame between breaths. You hear the hush of wind across marble. You feel the cool of evening settling on your shoulders like a borrowed cloak. All around you, Athens sleeps, and something within you exhales too. You remember the laughter, the absurdity of cheese puffs in tragedy, the sticky joy of satyr snacks, the bitterness of loss folded into sweet bread. And you smile, not wide, not loud, but with the quiet fullness of someone who has eaten life in all its flavors. Let the crumbs stay where they are. Let the echo of the chorus fade into the walls. Let the gods rest. You did well, we all did. Now, it's time. Close your eyes if they aren't already closed. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift like the last fold of parchment in a breeze. You're not gone, just still. The curtain has fallen. The snacks are gone. The story lingers. End of script. Sweet dreams.
Forgotten queens, silent thrones, and lasting echoes. History often echoes with the names of kings, but if you listen closely, you'll hear the softer voices. The forgotten thrones. The queens who led and were later left behind. Let's begin in Egypt. Her name was Shajar al-Dur, a sultan's widow, a strategist, and, briefly, a ruler. When her husband died during the Crusades, she concealed his death for weeks. She led from behind the curtain, keeping order, making decisions. Eventually, she became sultana, not queen consort, ruler. She held the kingdom during one of its most turbulent times. But history erased her quietly. Her name faded, her legacy hidden in footnotes. Now, let's go to Ecuador. There, during the Wars of Independence, rode a woman named Manuela Sáenz, a general. Called her the liberator of the liberator. She fought beside Simón Bolívar, not behind him. She saved his life. She wrote his letters. She rallied troops. She even dressed as a soldier and rode into battle. But after the war, while Bolívar was remembered, Manuela was exiled. She died. Poor in a small town by the sea, her letters and her sword forgotten. Let's drift to Southeast Asia, to the kingdom of Aceh in Sumatra, where Queen Taj ul-Alam reigned for decades. She was a scholar, a negotiator, a poet. She kept peace in a land surrounded by traders, warlords, and colonial ambitions. While men warred, she wrote. She sent letters, diplomatic, lyrical, firm. But centuries later, she was remembered mostly as the woman king, as if her rule was a curiosity, not a legacy. In Korea, Queen Seondeok of Silla ruled with wisdom. She built observatories, hospitals, temples. Her reign brought peace. Culture bloomed, but still, she was sometimes called a regent, not a queen, as if her crown was temporary. Even in Scandinavia, Queen Margaret the united Denmark, Norway, and Sweden under one crown, a feat few kings achieved. She ruled wisely, avoided war, and stabilized the North, but the Kalmar Union she forged was often credited to her nephew, not to the woman who dreamed it into being. These women weren't shadows. They were architects of peace, of unity, of resilience. They signed treaties, rode into storms, held empires together, and yet, their names are often unknown, their statues few, their stories nearly silent. But silence doesn't mean absence. Their echoes remain in documents, ruins, and whispered folklore. So tonight, as you close your eyes, think of a queen with ink-stained fingers or one who whispered orders from behind a curtain. Let them reign in your dreams, gently, quietly, fully. Sleep well under their watch. Creatures left out of the textbooks, Not all magical creatures made it into the textbooks. Some live quietly in legends, waiting to be remembered. Let's start in Australia. In the wetlands and billabongs, people whispered about the bunyip shy, water creature with soft fur, glowing eyes, and a mournful cry. It didn't eat people. It avoided them. But if you were lost and heard singing on the water, it might be the bunyip calling you home, now to the Philippines. There they speak of Bakunawa, a serpent so long it could circle the earth. It wasn't evil, just hungry for the moon. When Bakunawa tried to swallow it, people would bang pots and shout, begging the moon to escape. And often, it did. In the Faroe Islands, there's the tale of the Nikur, a horse with seaweed in its mane, living in lakes. It lured children with its beauty, but if you climbed on its back, it would dive into the water, taking you to the deep, unless you knew its name, whisper it, and you were free. To northern Canada, where Inuit children once feared the Kalupalik, not a monster, but a lonely being in a sealskin coat. She waited under ice shelves, humming lullabies. If a child wandered too, far from camp, she'd offer warmth and a place to nap. Some say she just wanted company. In the mountains of Georgia, an old woman wanders. They call her Dala. She appears on foggy paths, offering bread or a song. If you accept with kindness, she blesses your journey. If not, well, you just feel very cold. And then there's the Scottish shellycoat, a trickster who jingles when he walks, thanks to the tiny shells sewn into his coat. He hides by streams, telling riddles to travelers. Answer well, and he'll show you a safe path. Get it wrong, you end up soaked. None of these creatures are truly dangerous. Mostly, they're misunderstood. Left out of big books, erased by time, but listen closely to the wind, the water, the fog. They still whisper of bunyips and bakunawas, of seahorses and lullabies, of riddles and old bread. So tonight, as you close your eyes, maybe a creature will visit your dreams, not to scare, but to say hello. Creatures left out of the textbooks. Not all magical creatures made it into the textbooks. Some live quietly in legends, waiting to be remembered. Let's start in Australia. In the wetlands and billabongs, people whispered about the bunyip, a shy water creature with soft fur, glowing eyes, and a mournful cry. It didn't eat people. It avoided them. But if you were lost and heard singing on the water, it might be the bunyip calling you home. Now to the Philippines. There they speak of Bakunawa, a serpent so long it could circle the earth. It wasn't evil, just hungry for the moon. When Bakunawa tried to swallow it, people would bang pots and shout, begging the moon to escape. And often it did. In the Faroe Islands, there's the tale of the Nikur, a horse with seaweed in its mane, living in lakes. It lured children with its beauty, but if you climbed on its back, it would dive into the water, taking you to the deep, unless you knew its name, whisper it, and you were free. To northern Canada, where Inuit children once feared the Kalupalik, not a monster, but a lonely being in a sealskin coat. She waited under ice shelves, humming lullabies. If a child wandered too, far from camp, she'd offer warmth and a place to nap. Some say she just wanted company. In the mountains of Georgia, an old woman wanders. They call her Dala. She appears on foggy paths, offering bread or a song. If you accept with kindness, she blesses your journey. If not, well, you just feel very cold. And then there's the Scottish shellycoat, a trickster who jingles when he walks, thanks to the tiny shells sewn into his coat. He hides by streams, telling riddles to travelers. Answer well, and he'll show you a safe path. Get it wrong, you end up soaked. None of these creatures are truly dangerous. Mostly, they're misunderstood, left out of big books, erased by time. But listen closely to the wind, the water, the fog. They still whisper of bunyips and bakunawas, of seahorses and lullabies, of riddles and old bread. So tonight, as you close your eyes, maybe a creature will visit your dreams, not to scare, but to say hello. Sleep well, dream gently. Ancient bedtime for little ones long. Before white noise machines and lullaby playlists, bedtime was sacred. And across ancient cultures, parents whispered to the stars in their own way to help little ones sleep. Let's begin in ancient Babylon. Parents would chant quiet hymns to the moon god Sin. They believed the moon watched over children's dreams, a soft whisper, a steady rhythm. And sleep followed like a tide. Some even tied small clay tablets near the cradle, etched with protective charms. Now to ancient Egypt, mothers there made dolls of clay and linen shaped like cats or birds, not for play, but for protection. They placed them beside the child, whispering spells for peace. Even Pharaoh's children slept beneath thin golden amulets shaped like eyes to keep bad dreams away. In the Andes, Quechua-speaking people sang in humming tones, almost like wind. Through grass, they wrapped babies tightly in woven blankets, not just for warmth, but to mimic the womb, safe and still, and every song told a story of mountains, of ancestors, of gentle rivers. Moving to Greece, lullabies were often myth, songs about Selene, the moon goddess, or Hypnos, the spirit of sleep. Close your eyes, a mother would sing, as Hypnos closes the petals of the flowers, soft, simple metaphors, making nature feel like a blanket. In northern Vietnam, mothers sang Hat Ru, cradle songs, no big crescendos, just a whisper about rice fields, about longing, about a father's journey. A lullaby wasn't just for sleep. It was a lesson in love and absence. In Mongolia, children were lulled by the sound of the morin hur, the horsehead fiddle. Its sound mimicked wind across the steppe. Some fathers sang lullabies imitating horses' breathing, slow, steady, and rhythmic. In Japan, small bells were hung near sleeping children. It was believed the sound would attract kind spirits and ward off bad ones. Some lullabies were almost chants, slow, circular, like rocking inward form. In the Arctic, Inuit parents whispered to their babies in throat song, two voices moving like ice cracking and waves shifting. It wasn't melodic in the usual sense, but it carried warmth, a connection across breath. Across cultures, sleep wasn't commanded. It was invited through wind and moon, through metaphor and rhythm, sometimes with song, sometimes with silence. So tonight, when the world grows quiet, maybe hum a tune no one remembers. Imagine a baby wrapped in reeds beside the Nile, a song of Moonlight in Babylon, a cradle rocking softly in the Andes, and sleep will find you too. Good night, little one, and good night, ancient ones. The shepherd and the cloud in the quiet hills of old Europe, long before trains or timepieces, there lived a young shepherd named Elian. He had no castle, no kingdom, only his flock and the sky. Every morning Elian would wake before the sun, wrap his woolen cloak tight and climb the dewy slopes. He spoke little, sang softly, and listened. Always listened. One morning he noticed something curious, a cloud. It was round and low, not like the others. It hovered just above the hilltop. As if waiting, Elian watched, and the next day it returned, and the next. Each dawn, the cloud would drift over the same patch of grass. So Elian began to talk to it. He told it about his sheep, which ones were stubborn, which ones liked to nap in the sun. He told stories from the village, about the baker's daughter, about the festival lights, and the cloud stayed. He started calling it Old White. Soon the sheep grazed near it. Birds sang through it. The cloud became company. Seasons passed. Elian grew taller. His voice deepened. And still, the cloud came. When storms roared, it returned after. When snow fell, it floated close as if keeping watch. One spring, a traveler passed by. He saw Elian sitting, smiling, up at what seemed like empty sky. "Who are you speaking to?" the traveler asked. Elian just nodded upward. "The cloud," he said. The traveler laughed gently. "You've been alone too long." But Elian just smiled. That night, as stars dusted the sky, the cloud glowed faintly in the moonlight. Elian hummed an old tune, and the cloud shimmered, as if it remembered the melody. Years went on. Villagers aged. Paths shifted, but from the hilltop, a shepherd still rose before the sun, still spoke softly, still shared his day. And each morning the cloud, old white, returned, not grand, not loud, just present. Sometimes the most loyal friends don't need words. Sometimes all it takes is being there. So tonight, if you see a lone cloud in the sky, give it a name, tell it your thoughts. You never know. It might just listen back. Sleep well, under skies that remember. The library, beneath the lake, beneath still waters where sunlight barely dances, there was once a library. Not a ruin, not a sunken wreck, but a living library, built under a lake so quiet the fish forgot to ripple. They say the library was crafted by monks who believed silence was the highest form of reading. To reach it, one had to row at dawn, when the mist still hugged the shore. The boatmen would say nothing, only point, toward a stone that jutted out of the water like a tooth. From "There you dove," and the water welcomed you. It wasn't cold, it was listening. The descent was slow, and soon the shimmer of stained glass glowed beneath you. Yes, stained glass underwater. The entrance was a dome, round as a teacup made of coral and salt fused. Glass. Inside, the library had no shelves. Books floated in airless grace. Some glowed faintly. Others hummed, as if remembering the voices that once read them. You didn't read with your eyes. You touched the spine. And the story, the feeling, would pour into your thoughts like warm tea into a cup. One visitor said they touched a story about wind, and afterward, every breeze felt like a memory. Another remembered a tale of sorrow and found that their tears tasted sweet. The caretakers were not people, but reflections, mirrors that moved on their own, straightening books, humming lullabies of old alphabets. No, one could write in this library. Only listen. You were not allowed to take stories with you, but you left with a piece of them nestled in your mind. If you tried to speak of what you read aloud, the words faded like steam from a kettle. But if you whispered them to a sleeping child or an old dog, they lingered. The library was said to drift, never rooted, in one lake too long, sometimes under a forest pond, sometimes beneath a glacier's melt. It always chose stillness. People who found it often did so when their thoughts were quietest, and they never spoke of it above the waterline. Why? Because part of being trusted with a story is knowing when to keep it close. So if you ever row across a misty lake and see a stone just slightly out of place, if the air feels thick with hush and your heart feels like it's remembering something you never learned, perhaps you've arrived. You won't need to knock, just dive slowly and listen. The clockmaker who paused time in a small town nestled between snow-dusted hills. There lived a clockmaker named Aldrich. He was not famous, nor was he young, but he was careful, the kind of careful that only time can teach. Every morning he wound each clock in his shop by hand. He whispered to them, not commands, but kindness. "You've done well," he'd murmur to a pocket watch, steady as ever, to a tall grandfather clock. Visitors said time felt slower in Aldrich's shop. More patient, as though the minutes themselves paused at the doorway waiting to be let in. Some came to buy, but most came to breathe, the scent of cedar and brass, the soft tick of dozens of clocks, each keeping its own rhythm, yet somehow in harmony. One winter, an old woman arrived with a broken watch. It had belonged to her son, long gone. "It hasn't ticked in years," she said. Aldrich examined it, nodding slowly. Then he did something strange. He didn't fix the gears, he sat the watch beside his tea. And every day he spoke to it. "Tell me your story," he'd say. He played music near it, lit a candle beside it, let the morning sun warm. And one morning said it ticked, not loudly, just once. And the old woman, when she returned, cried quietly. "It remembers," she whispered. From that day, Aldrich began to believe that time was a listener, and sometimes it needed reminding why it moved at all. He started crafting clocks without numbers, clocks that told time by light, by tea, or by scent. A clock that bloomed with lavender at dusk, another that glowed with honey-yellow warmth. At noon, people didn't understand, but they smiled because the clocks made them feel something they hadn't in years: stillness. Then, one spring morning, Aldrich didn't open the shop. Inside, the clocks had all stopped, but none were broken. They were waiting. People gathered, not in panic, but in silence. Then the mayor, a man who never took lunch breaks, said softly, "Maybe he's giving us a pause." So they did. The town paused. Shops stayed closed. Children played in the square. The bakery gave out bread with no coin asked, and for one whole day, time didn't tick. It breathed. And in that quiet, someone found a note tucked behind the cuckoo clock. When time feels too fast, be the one who slows it. No one ever found where Aldrich went. But the clocks, they still tick. Gently. Just enough. So tonight, if time feels like it's racing, light a candle, pour some tea, and let your minutes rest. They'll wait for you. They always do. The lanterns of the forgotten harbor. In a quiet cove where maps ended and legends began, there once flickered a harbor with no name. Locals called it the place where lanterns learned to float. Because every evening, as the tide crept in, a glow rose from the water. Dozens of lanterns, bobbing gently, lit without fire, only memory. They say the harbor was first lit by a woman who waited. For years, she stood at the shore, holding a single lantern, waiting for someone lost at sea. The lantern never dimmed, and though no ship returned, her light became a beacon, not just for sailors, but for anyone who had lost something or someone. Soon, other lanterns appeared, left by those who couldn't speak their grief, a fisherman whose nets had always come back full, until they didn't, a child who lost their dog, then a brother, then a bit of laughter, a midwife who whispered lullabies to empty cribs. Each lantern held a memory, not of sadness alone, but of love and longing and things worth remembering. The harbor didn't judge, it listened. Even the wind seemed gentler there, as if it too was learning how to be soft. Some nights the lanterns would drift in shapes, a spiral, a heart, once a shape like an open hand. People came not to visit, but to rest. They brought no cameras, only time. Some swore the lanterns whispered, others said they hummed, but everyone agreed they made the night feel less lonely. And sometimes a lantern would rise, float not just on water, but into the air, as if it had found peace or had been heard. No one knew who tended the lanterns. Some believed the original woman was still there, now part of the harbor itself. Others said the harbor was a kindness too old to name. But if you left a lantern, truly left it, it always found a place in the glow. Even if your hands were empty, the harbor saw. It always did. So if you ever find yourself near the sea and the night feels heavy, look for the flicker. Place your thoughts into the hush and let them float. Not to forget, but to remember gently. Because sometimes the softest lights shine for the things we never say aloud. The tailor who stitched the wind in, a quiet village where the hills whispered, there lived a tailor named Emile. He was old, but not fragile. Thin-fingered, with eyes like thread spools, always turning, always searching. He didn't sew clothes. He stitched. Moments, a child's laughter into the hem of a skirt, the scent of cinnamon into a shawl, the memory of a dance into the lining of a coat. People didn't come to him for fashion. They came when they lost something they couldn't name. My mornings feel hollow, one woman said. Emile nodded. Let's stitch in the sunrise, he replied, and he did. golden thread with a hint of coffee and birdsong. There was talk, of course. Some said he was a magician. Others called him lonely. But those who wore his pieces swore by them. A scarf that made you breathe deeper. Gloves that warmed more than just your fingers. One winter, a traveler arrived. Thin, cold, and wordless, he placed a scrap of wind-blown cloth on Emil's counter. No request, just silence. Emil studied it. It smelled of salt and pine. He touched it and felt motion. The traveler wanted to remember something, or someone, that had moved too fast to hold. So Emil began. He stitched with threads pulled from feathers and dandelions, used a needle carved from driftwood, and over days created a coat that didn't weigh down, it lifted. When the traveler wore it, he exhaled and smiled. The next morning, he left without a word, but the village noticed something. The wind changed. It danced, not harshly but curiously, as if wearing something new. From that day, Emil became quieter. He stitched less. Until one morning, his shop was closed. No sign, no note, just a jacket hanging on the door. Inside its pocket, a single thread tied in a loop and a breeze that smelled like beginnings. No one replaced Emil. They couldn't. But sometimes when someone walks the village square feeling lost, the breeze tugs at their coat just slightly, and they smile. So, tonight, if the wind feels like it's trying to tell you something, listen. It may be stitched with a memory just for you. The bridge that dreamed. There was once a bridge that dreamed, not of crossing, but of stories. It stretched quietly between two sleepy hills, arched like a sigh. No cars passed over it, only footsteps, rain, and sometimes laughter. Villagers believed. The bridge listened to every step, every silence. They called it Whisper Bend. It was old, built before records, before borders, but it never aged. It creaked kindly, like an elder waking up just to nod at you. Children tossed pebbles from its side, and each plink into the stream below was like a sentence in a book only the bridge could read. Old couples touched its railing and remembered. Kisses they thought they'd forgotten. Once a girl left her shoes at the foot of the bridge and said, "Keep my worries." She walked barefoot across and swore the wind braided her hair with comfort. The bridge, they said, had dreams because people gave it theirs. A man once cried on its planks after losing his way in life. The next day moss grew in the shape of a compass near where he sat. Another time someone carved a name into its wood, and flowers bloomed beneath it, even in snow. The town never paved it, never repainted. To repaint was to silence it, so they let it be. And in return, the bridge gave. Small miracles, warmth when you needed courage, a slower sunset when you needed time. The sparrow who forgot to fly there once was a sparrow who forgot how to fly. Not because her wings were broken, but because she had spent too long hiding from the sky. Her name was Luma. She lived in a hollow tree, surrounded by the gentle hum of moss and the soft rhythm of falling leaves. Luma remembered the sky. In dreams, in whispers, in ripples of sunlight through the leaves, but she had not touched it in years. She told herself she liked the quiet. The ground didn't ask much of, heard no gusts to wrestle with, no heights to fear, just stillness. And yet, every evening when the wind curled around her nest like a question, something inside her fluttered, not her wings, her longing. She watched other birds take off, arcs of color against the dusk. They sang mid-flight, careless and certain. Luma sang too, but her songs were softer, like folded paper. One morning, a young robin landed beside her. He chirped brightly, "Why don't you fly?" Luma blinked. "I forgot." The robin tilted his head. "Want to remember?" And just like that, something shifted. They didn't rush. The robin came back each morning. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they watched clouds, sometimes they just sat in silence, like two seeds waiting for spring. Then one day, Luma stepped outside, her hollow with both feet. She stretched her wings. They creaked, unsure. The wind waited. She flapped once, twice, lifted an inch, then landed. No one laughed. The robin only smiled. That was a hello. The next day she rose a little higher, and the day after that she circled a branch. She didn't soar. Not yet, but she remembered how it felt to be held by the sky. Not pushed, not pulled, held. It was soft, and for the first time in a long while, Luma sang with her whole heart. She flew not far, but far enough to see the tops of trees again, to hear the song of leaves from above. And she whispered, I remember. Now birds tell stories of the sparrow who forgot, and how she remembered not by force, but by kindness. So if you ever feel like your wings have forgotten how to lift, don't. Chase the sky, sit with it, talk to it, and when you're ready, even if it's just a little, let it hold you like it did for Luma. The bakery that baked moonlight. There was a bakery that only opened at night. It didn't have a sign, only a window glowing like a full moon, and the smell of dreams rising on warm air. They called it the night oven. No one remembered who built it. Some said it had always been there, tucked between a cobbler's shop and a house with too many clocks. Inside, a woman baked. Her name was Morel. She didn't speak much. Her apron was always dusted with flour and stardust, and her eyes held stories. No one had asked yet, but oh, how she baked, not bread. Not really. What came from her oven were memories, soft and edible. A loaf that tasted like your grandmother's laughter, a tart that made you remember your first rainstorm, croissants so light they disappeared on the tongue like a forgotten lullaby. People didn't come because they were hungry. They came because they missed something they couldn't name. A traveler once stumbled in, soaked and shivering. Mirel offered him a bun filled with lavender and lemon and silence. He cried after the first bite, didn't know why, didn't need to. Another night, a boy wandered in carrying a broken toy. She gave him a cookie shaped like a star. He left smiling, holding nothing but hope. Her menu changed with the moon. New moon, soft things for grief. Half moon, flaky layers for change. Full moon, round, warm buns for courage. And when a blue moon came, she made something called night crust. No one knew what was in it, but those who ate it always woke up remembering a dream they'd long forgotten. No one paid with coins, only with whispers or memories or stories too heavy to carry alone. She accepted them all with a nod and a warm napkin. Some nights people would just sit by her counter, breathing in the scent of quiet healing, and when they left, they walked softer, as if the world was a little lighter. No one knew where she went during the day, but they all agreed she was. Part of the night, a baker not of dough, but of feeling. So if you ever find yourself wandering under starlight, heavy-hearted and unsure, look for a window that glows like a hush. Follow the scent of memories baking. And if you're lucky, you'll find Morel. She'll hand you something warm, and you'll remember something kind. The postman of the northern lights in the far north, where the stars dance low and the snow speaks in whispers, there lived a postman, but not the kind with a truck and uniform. This postman wore a scarf made of aurora threads and boots stitched. From cloud wool, they called him Ivar. He didn't deliver letters made of paper. He delivered the ones never written, the unspoken thoughts, the feelings people held too gently to say aloud. You see, Ivar could hear wishes, not the kind you shout at. Birthday candles, but the quiet ones. The wish of a grandmother for one last hug from her sister far away. The wish of a child to be understood without needing words. The wish of someone, somewhere, to not feel so alone. He carried no bag. Instead, the northern lights would swirl down at night and gather messages in colors. Blues for longing, greens for hope, purples for dreams. He would ride a sleigh pulled by silent elk, not reindeer, elk with antlers that caught snowflakes like memories, and each stop he made was not marked on a map. It was marked by need. Flicker in the chimney smoke, a change in the wind's sigh, a lantern that refused to go out. When he arrived, he didn't knock. He simply sat by the hearth, shared warm tea, and somehow the person knew what they needed to hear. He would whisper, "Your brother still laughs at your old jokes," or "She saved the drawing you made when you were 7. He never asked for anything, only that you let your heart speak back, even silently, especially silently. Once, a girl who hadn't spoken in months looked into his eyes and mouthed, "Thank you." The next morning, her bedroom window shone with frost in the shape of words, "You are not broken." Ivar came when the sky was dark but kind, never during storms, never in fear, only in calm, because his gift wasn't urgency, it was presence. So, if you ever see the light swirl low on a winter night, open your window just a little. Not too much, just enough for a whisper to pass. And if you're very still, you might hear the crunch of soft snow and the quietest knock in your soul. That's Ivar, delivering something you didn't know you'd been waiting for. The cat who painted sunsets. There was once a cat who painted sunsets, not with brushes or paints, but with her paws, dipped in the colors of day's end. Her name was Safra. She lived on a hill just outside a small village where people always looked west in the evening, wondering why the sky was more beautiful there. No one knew it was because of her. Safra didn't meow much. She walked slowly, deliberate, as if each step held a note of a song she was composing across the sky. Each afternoon, just before dusk, she would climb the hill. In her wake trailed streaks of orange, plum, gold, and sometimes soft teal. She did not rush. She waited for the light to soften, and then, as if answering a silent cue, she'd lift her paws and begin to dance, a slow, elegant dance of arcs and spirals. Each swirl laid a hue, each pause a breath of rose or amber. Birds would gather in trees. Silent children at windows would forget to blink. Even the wind would hold its breath. The sunsets she painted were not the same. Some were joyful, some quiet and blue, others wild and full of tangerine laughter. She painted based on what the world needed, not what it wanted. On rainy days, she painted warmth. On lonely days, she painted memory. On days when hearts were heavy, she painted lightness. But no one ever saw her, not directly. Only once did a girl catch a glimpse. She had wandered up the hill with her sketchbook, hoping to draw the sky. She saw Safra just as the cat dipped a paw into a puddle of lavender light. "Thugs," girl gasped, and Safra paused. Then, with a quiet blink, she pressed her paw onto the girl's page. A tiny paw print glowed there for a moment, then faded. But the girl never forgot. She grew up to be an artist, painting skies that felt like lullabies. Safra kept painting, never asking for thanks. She was not doing it for praise. She simply believed the sky deserved to end each day in beauty. So, if you've ever looked at a sunset and felt your chest soften, if you've ever sighed at the colors and thought, "Thank you," without knowing, why, it might have been Safra, still painting softly, so the world could sleep wrapped in color.